it's Nicole and welcome to our first video of Designed With for 2019. Today we're going to make this fun little mini album in just a few minutes. What you need for this project are some thin pieces of chipboard, nothing too thick, just nice and thin weight, some pieces of pattern paper, 4 or 5, you'll need 3 for the inside of the album, and then some things like ephemera or cut apart sheets and maybe some embellishments. So the first thing you want to do with 3 sheets of pattern paper is score each piece at the 6-inch mark. So you want to do it from lengthwise 6 inches, turn it 90 degrees, and do it again at the 6-inch mark. So basically you're just dividing each of these pattern papers into a grid of 4. Once you have done that for all 3 sheets, what you want to do is you're going to trim part of that down to create a folding pattern. So starting with one of your sheets, start at the top at that middle scoring line and go 6 inches down right until where the 4 scoring lines meet, and that's where you want to stop trimming. If you want to have text like I do here on this paper, you actually want to cut your paper with the lines running vertically, not horizontally as I have done. Otherwise your words will be running vertically in your book instead of horizontal. So what you want to do now is you want to decide what inside of the pattern paper is going to be in your book, and you want to fold it towards each other like I did here. If you fold it the opposite way, you're going to see that my pink is now on the outside of my book and the cherries are in the inside, and that's not how I want it. I want the pink on the inside, so I'm going to make sure that those folded pieces touch together. What you wind up with is one single sheet. I'm going to call it a folded flap, and then another single sheet. And that's how you get the book to kind of stick together, is to have those single sheets like right there touching each other. So you want to make sure you fold each of your pattern papers accordingly, and don't worry if you fold them the wrong way. It's very easy just to flip it around and fold it again. For each of the folded flaps, you want to take your thin piece of chipboard and just adhere that nicely in between the folded flap portion. So again, there's a single page, a folded flap, and then another single page. So it's the folded flap where you want to have that chipboard piece stuck together. In the end, you'll see that you have a single piece, a thicker folded flap right there, as well as another single piece. When you have your single page, that's what you want to adhere to each other. So you can line it up here with some adhesive. If you really want this to stick well, I recommend you use a double-sided adhesive. I'm just using tape runner. I'm fine with that because I will do some sewing later on behind the scenes to get it to stick together. So if you don't want to do that, you can just use double-sided adhesive. I'm also adding some punch strips of cardstock along the inside edge of my book before I stick it together. You could do the same thing with some ribbon if you had some. Just a nice little decorative touch. It's not completely necessary, but just something to add some jazz to the extra side of the mini album. And then you just take your single page from the next pattern paper and adhere it again, and you continue the process. So you adhere your chipboard piece to that middle flap, fold it back over. Again, I'm going to add more trimmed cardstock along the edge of my book here. And then I'm going to fold that flap down to kind of get the chipboard hidden and for it all to stick together. And you just want to repeat this process until your book is together. This book will give us 12 pages that you can embellish. If you want to do it larger, you just need to add more pieces of paper. If you, at this point, once you get all the sheets stuck together, you want to trim anything off, you can do that with a pair of scissors. You'll have an opportunity later to do more trimming, so don't worry about it too much. Now you want to choose a pattern paper for the cover of your album. I'm going to trim this down to a 6 by 12 inch piece. I'm just being a little picky with my cover paper here as it has a bit of a gap around the edge. So I'm just trimming that down a little bit, and then I'm going to trim it down to that 6 by 12 inch piece. And then you can just set that aside for now, and we were going to worry about choosing some paper for the spine of our book. So yeah, I think that will be a nice cover. So now I want to choose something. I'm going to use a paper pad for this and choose a spine paper. I like this teal floral, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to trim that to a 2.5 by 6 inch piece. And I'm just going to trim that on my trimmer. And then I'm going to do a little bit of score lines, one at the 1 inch mark and another one here at the 1.5 inch mark. And as you can see, when you fold that up upon itself, it creates a nice spine for your binder. So I'm going to trim my paper down to 2 6-inch pieces, 6 by 6, and then I'm just going to adhere those covered pattern paper right to the top of my book. It's going to cover completely my cherry paper, and I'm just trying to decide which way I want to have it on there. But I think I end up going with this, and I'm going to do that for both the front and the back of the album. And again, if you wanted to use double-sided adhesive, because this might get, if you're the type that leaves it in your living room, you may want to do that. If you feel like you need to trim any more, any excess, this is the time to do it before you add your spine. So I opened my book up page by page and just did a little bit of trimming as I went. Sometimes I sewed a little bit on mine. As you adhere the album together, you'll notice some things kind of just don't line up 100%. So that's okay. Just trim with your scissors very lightly. Make sure things kind of line up nice the way you want to have it when you open it up. You don't want to have any kind of gaps when you're flipping through your album later. So you go through and just trim them off with your scissors. Nice and easy. Okay, so once your album is all ready to go, it's time to add the spine. I'm going to add again some more strips of that scallop edge cardstock. I'm just going to do that before I put my spine in place. Again, it's totally not necessary. If you just want to add a plain spine, you can do that. I am also going to take this and run this through my sewing machine just to add some detail along that scallop edge piece. So I'm going to quickly do that, and just adds a nice little bit of a detail. Now that that's ready, you can add a lot of adhesive to the back of this, or double-sided adhesive, and then lay this up along the edge of your book where all the folded edges are, and that will be to cover the spine of your book. So if you were to make this book a little bit larger, you would obviously need a wider spine to do that. So depending on how many pages you use will depend on your score marks along the inside there of your strip. So if you decide you want to double this up, you probably want to double up the size, the thickness of your pattern paper as well as your score lines. So you could really make this book as wide as you wanted. To a certain extent anyway, you get pretty heavy, but if you were to double it, it'd be great. So now it's just time to do all the fun stuff and decorate. So I'm just going to keep it pretty simple. I have some cut apart sheets here from crepe paper that match this paper, so I'm going to cut some of these apart and just add that. I actually have some embellishments left over from another project coming soon, so I'm going to use that too. These little felt flowers. And I'm just going to pick some pattern paper here for the front to decorate and layer behind that Happy Little Moments tag that I cut out, and add a little bit of stitching. I'm not going to make this really chunky on the front because throughout the course of the year, what I plan to do with this mini album is just to write a little thought or happy moment or anything, a quote maybe even a photo of myself every month, and put it in the middle of this book. So I thought if I kind of leave it simple on the front, it gives me some opportunity to add some more chunk throughout the inside of the book later on. So I kind of have my felt flowers lined up where I think I'm going to want them later. I wanted to add another layer behind that Happy Little Moments tab. So I peeled it off, as I do most times with my project, is peel things off. And I'm going to add that little tag there, line my flowers up where I want them, and I'm going to use some glue dots to really stick those in place. I'm just going to get my felt flowers on. And before I do that, I'm going to add this little bottom of this other tag that was in the ephemera pack. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my 2019 glitter letters on. And I just thought this is a nice little way to have a little memory book for the whole year, really small, that you can make in an afternoon and just kind of grab or keep with you and fill out once a month, just to kind of add some thoughts throughout the course of the year. A good way to start the year, I think. I'm going to add a little bit of twine to the top of my tag. I do not like to have empty holes in tags, so either sew a button in there, add a tag, enamel dot, do something, cover that hole up. So I think the tag with the tie looks kind of pretty. And then I have some enamel dots here. These are buttons actually from Pink Fresh Studio and from Chamel. Just going to add those to the front of the album. And then I think I'm going to go in and grab just my trusty good old enamel dots from Doodlebug here. There's some sprinkles, and add some pink ones here throughout the bit of the front cover. And really, I think that's pretty much how the mini album will work out. I have a lot of space here to add in some items throughout the course of the year. What I did after I shot the video was just add some white pieces of cardstock for the photos for each month, and a little bit of washi along the top just to decorate. You can see this album stands up pretty nicely on its own. It's not really heavy, and just really, really fun. So I hope you'll give this one a shot. Fun little project, just kick you off for the new year, and I hope you are going to come around for more Design with videos. I'll see you next month. Bye-bye.